remember the first time I got beat up very, very badly. I had asked his friend if my cab had arrived, and he didn't like how I asked that, I guess. And I was in the kitchen and I turned around and a great big huge chair was flying at my head. And so he cornered me in the living room and grabbed me by my hair and bent me over and kept punching me in the head over and over and over again. I remember thinking, like, I have to defend myself. Like, what's happening? Like, I have to stop this. The moment I had that thought, he headbutted me. He said, don't you ever defend yourself, don't scream, don't do anything when I'm doing that, because I will kill you. I will see red and you will die. It was bad. I mean, I was literally unrecognizable. You know, family members didn't know who I was. I was beaten up so badly. So Airdrie Power stands for Protecting Our Women with Emergency Resources. We are a fully functioning registered charity, and now we are just working on a capital campaign to raise the funds to build the building. It was 10:30 Sunday morning. I'm going to do my regular shopping, and I get out of my vehicle and I hear a woman screaming, "Somebody help me." It took me a moment to figure out if they were just horsing around or if this woman actually needed some help. And then when I saw him hitting her, punching her in the face, I was immediately fearful and didn't want to get too close, but I also couldn't walk away. I did watch, a few people walk by the car and notice what was happening and continue to walk, which broke my heart. And so that was what fueled the starting of Airdrie Power, because no woman should ever feel worthless or alone, and feel like that she deserves this and that there is no better life out there for her. So our main demographic is young families. That just so happens to be the demographic of domestic violence as well. 20 years ago, I was in the same kind of circumstance. I reached out for help. I ran to a store. Inside the store there was 4 men and 1 gentleman behind the counter, and I'd asked him to call 911. He didn't refuse, but he wanted to know why. In that time of him trying to ask me why I needed assistance, of course, he came into the store and grabbed my purse and said, "Let's go." And I knew I was going to get beat up quite badly because I left. And so looking around the store and seeing 5 gentlemen in the store, I felt safe. And I said, no, I wasn't going to go. He ended up dragging me literally out of the store by my hair. I got a pretty severe beating that night. But what hurt me the most that day was not the physical beating I got, but it was the feeling of worthlessness and just knowing that people knew what was happening, but they weren't willing to help me. When you are trying to flee domestic violence and you don't have a shelter in town, you have to pick up and leave and go to a whole nother city, and usually a large city. When you have small rural communities, the big city is very scary and intimidating, and to be dropped off in the middle of a big city and just left to hope hope all works out, that's extremely scary. And fear is paralyzing. I know I wouldn't have gone to a shelter if I would have had to have gone to another city. So that's 1/10 of what's happening in Airdrie. And I wish that the city would see that this is nothing. These numbers are very minimal. And if we had more services available, more women would come forward. And I think that they would be overwhelmed at how many women are actually being abused in their city. He was going to beat me up again, and I was holding the baby. She was just a month old at the time. My brother had called me, and he'd heard a male voice on the phone, and so he just assumed I was cheating and whatnot. He'd asked me to put the baby down and go and get my licks, as he would call it, and I wasn't willing to do that at that point. And I remember thinking, like, I don't want my daughter to grow up thinking this is okay. I don't want her to ever see me black and blue, which I was for the majority of our relationship. It was her that gave me the strength, and it was a miracle. A taxi had pulled up outside the house, not for us. And I grabbed her, bare feet and all, and ran and jumped in the cab and demanded that he drive me to a shelter. And he did. If that taxi hadn't shown up, I would have gotten beaten up that day. And who knows where I would be today. The hardest thing is, and it's, again, this is the same thing I'm fighting. It's a little embarrassing to admit, but I'm still afraid of men. I've put myself out there that I'm fighting domestic violence and I'm not afraid of anything. And, and these men, I'm still afraid. And I will always be afraid. People expect me to be this strong girl that will, fight the fight, literally, but I can't. My secret dream is to have a working ranch where the women can have access to animals and farming, and they grow their own vegetables for the kitchen. I want every single woman to know that they can be and do anything that they set their heart to, and whatever they desire most to be in life, they can be that. But just like everyone else, they can't do it alone. And I want them to know that they're not alone. And so if that's the feeling that this facility can give them, to know that if they can dream it, they can do it with the support of other women in the community.